Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at the deepest dark, surviving extreme underground rescues. We are heading far beneath the surface of the Earth to explore a terrifying, high-stakes reality that most of us will never see, and frankly, we probably never want to. Okay, let's dive into this, because what we're about to uncover tests the absolute limits of human endurance, and it reveals this incredible survival instinct we all carry when the walls feel like they're literally closing in on us. I want you to really picture this for a second. Imagine a place where there is zero natural light. None. It's damp, it's freezing cold, and the rock walls are pressing right up against you. Now imagine suffering a catastrophic injury down there, breaking a bone, or something even worse, hundreds of meters below ground. You are separated from medical help by miles of solid rock, and the tunnels are so narrow you literally have to exhale just to squeeze your shoulders through. How on earth do you get out? How does anyone even begin to save you? Well, to understand how these extractions actually happen, we've got to look at the people who go down there in the first place. Take 32-year-old Italian caver Ottavia Piana. Back in December of 2024, she entered the Bueno Fonteno cave system in northern Italy. And it's really crucial to note here, she wasn't some reckless tourist just looking for a quick thrill. As a speleologist, she's a highly trained scientist. She was down there to map an entirely uncharted branch of the cave system. But while she was exploring a section so remote that it didn't even have a name yet, she lost her footing and fell about 5 meters down a rocky drop. That single misstep, it set off a horrifying ordeal. Ottavia fractured her leg, she cracked several ribs, and she even broke bones in her face. So she couldn't stand, and she definitely couldn't crawl. For 75 agonizing hours, she was trapped in total darkness. And the temperature in the cave just sat at a brutal 8 degrees Celsius, which is about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So while her companions scrambled back to the surface to call the Italian Alpine Rescue Service, Ottavia was left completely alone in the freezing, wet blackness, basically just fighting to stay conscious. Now, the logistics of her rescue were just absolutely mind-boggling. Mobilizing 100 specialist rescuers was really just the starting point. The true nightmare was this 100-meter bottleneck right in the middle of the cave system. The tunnels were literally too narrow to even fit a medical stretcher through. So what did the rescue teams do? They had to bring in drills, hammers, and get this, small explosives. They meticulously chipped away at solid rock just to widen the passageway. And because space was so incredibly tight, they could only have 20 rescuers inside at any one time. To keep Ottavia alive while they were literally altering the Earth's geology, medics built a heated base camp deep underground, pumping her with oxygen and warm air. Day after day, they just inched her forward. When she was finally carried out into the early morning darkness, 75 hours later, the story took this shocking twist. You see, this was actually not the first time Ottavia had been rescued from Bueno Fontano. No way, right? Just 17 months earlier, she had suffered a fall in another part of the exact same cave, which triggered a 40-hour rescue operation back then. Now, while some people on the outside called her reckless, the head of the rescue team firmly defended her. He pointed out that she had the right equipment, the right training, and the right knowledge. It's just that caves are inherently unpredictable. And Ottavia, she actually said she had no regrets. Exploring the unknown is simply what cavers do. And you know, that unpredictability is exactly what makes caving so deeply hazardous. The environment can turn on you in the blink of an eye. Let's jump back to 1997, to Alabama's McBride's cave. Veteran caver Gerald Mani, who actually helped originally explore this very cave, went in with a small group. It was known as a wet cave, which usually meant calm, gently flowing underground streams. But while they were deep inside, a sudden weather change up on the surface triggered a massive flash flood. In mere minutes, those gentle little streams transformed into raging, violent rivers, sealing off passages almost all the way to the ceiling. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer cascading chaos of the environment. Gerald was standing at a 23-foot drop when the floodwater hit him, basically like a waterfall. In the panic and the blinding rush of all that water, he grabbed what he thought was the main rope, but he only managed to grab one of the 2 ropes he needed. He plummeted, completely smashing his thigh bone and femur. He crashed down onto this narrow ledge, screaming in absolute agony, while freezing water just hammered down on him from above. The rescue teams couldn't even enter safely. They had to literally wait for the water levels to drop. So Gerald just lay there, pinned on that tiny ledge in the freezing floodwater for over 12 torturous hours. After 18 hours of this brutal extraction, wading through chest-deep water in total darkness, Gerald was finally pulled to the surface. He survived, thankfully. But a lifetime of caving left him with this chilling realization. He said, The cave always wins when the water comes. And wow, that is a stark reminder of the absolute helplessness of human beings when we're matched up against the raw, unpredictable forces of underground nature. Let's scale up the geography a bit and look at the sheer manpower required for these types of operations. Fast forward to November 2021, 38-year-old George Linnane entered Ogof Ffynnon Ddu, which is this massive 50-kilometer-long cave system in Wales that plunges nearly 300 meters deep. George was a very experienced caver, but he just put his foot in the wrong place and fell 15 meters. He shattered his leg, his jaw, his sternum, and he even suffered spinal injuries. The timeline of his rescue is basically a textbook logistical nightmare. When the first responders finally reached him around hour 10, they quickly realized that a standard extraction was completely impossible. George was over a mile underground, he was surrounded by waterfalls and these incredibly narrow crawls. A stretcher simply wasn't going to fit through the shortest exit. The only way out was through the main streamway, which is this long, brutal route full of rushing water and giant boulders. By hour 30, things were so dire they had to call in nationwide backup, and that even included veterans who worked on the famous 2018 Thai cave rescue. The actual mechanics of getting George out over that mile-long underground route are just staggering. Rescuers had to form a massive human chain in complete and total darkness. Working in shifts around the clock, they meticulously passed his stretcher through flowing underground streams. They lifted him incredibly carefully over slick, slippery boulders, and then hauled him vertically up these narrow rock shafts. And to coordinate all this chaos, they used a specialized communication system called CaveLink to actually send text messages through solid rock, connecting the underground teams with the coordinators up on the surface. All told, it took nearly 300 volunteer rescuers from across Britain to get the job done. Just think about that scale of human effort for a second. 300 people? After 54 straight hours, George's stretcher finally broke through the surface on a foggy Monday night. To this day, it remains the longest stretcher carry in the entire history of British cave rescue. Okay, our final case takes us to the absolute extreme of depth and isolation, Lechuguilla Cave in New Mexico. The year was 1991. The caver was 40-year-old Emily Davis Mobley, an elite explorer with decades of experience under her belt. Lechuguilla is actually the deepest and most restricted cave in the United States, plunging over 1,500 feet below the desert surface. Emily was down there mapping new passages about 2 miles deep inside the cave and 1,000 feet straight down. While she was climbing up a steep slope, an 80 to 100-pound boulder just broke free without any warning whatsoever. It slammed directly into her left leg, shattering her tibia and leaving her pinned there in excruciating pain. News of the accident spread fast, and soon enough, over 100 expert pavers descended into the earth, with another 100 supporting them up on the surface, all to attempt one of the most difficult rescues in American history. And this brilliantly illustrates just how tough cavers are, because the extraction route was almost impossibly hostile. They had to rig up this complex system of ropes and pulleys to suspend Emily in mid-air over a 100-foot drop, terrifyingly named the Freakout Traverse. Later on, it took an entire day just to haul her up a single 250-foot slope, known as the Great White Way. But Emily, she completely refused to be a helpless victim. She actually dragged herself through the easier sections using her arms and her one good leg. And despite being in agonizing pain, she was joking with rescuers, critiquing their rope techniques, and at one point, she literally ordered a pizza to be delivered underground. It took 91 grueling hours. That is nearly 4 full days. From the exact moment that boulder crushed her leg to the moment her stretcher finally poked through the cave opening into the night sky. And you know what she did? When she finally emerged at 1 a.m., she looked up at the stars and she just started singing. When we pull back and look at these timelines side by side, we really begin to grasp the sheer magnitude of these emergencies. So the crucial point is this: saving a single human life from the deep earth requires a staggering mobilization of resources, manpower, and time. Whether it's Ottavia's 75 hours in Italy or Emily's 91 hours in New Mexico, we're talking about hundreds of experts who willingly put themselves in extreme danger. They're fighting against claustrophobia, freezing temperatures, and solid rock, all just to bring one of their own back to the surface safely. What connects all of these explorers isn't recklessness. Not at all. They all had perfect training, they all had the right equipment, they had decades of combined experience. But they were operating in an environment where humans simply do not belong. A single loose rock,
a sudden shift in weather, just one wrong foot placement. That is literally all it takes to bring a highly trained expert to the absolute brink of death. The cave is utterly unpredictable, and it owes us absolutely nothing. But even if you never step foot in a cave, this level of sheer survival instinct is something we all tap into when life suddenly pulls the ground out from beneath our feet.
Which leaves us with one final haunting thought. Every single one of these explorers, Ottavia, Gerald, George, Emily, they all returned to caving after their bones healed. After experiencing the absolute worst horrors the deep dark has to offer, they went right back in. It really makes you wonder, what is it about the unknown that calls to us so powerfully that we are willing to risk absolutely everything just to see what lies in the shadows? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.